introduce you now to our next speaker, Dr. Christoph Strnadl, Dr. Christoph Strnadl.
That's perfect, yeah.
Good, okay. Has many years of consulting and management experience in IT and how to leverage IT for businesses. In his role as Deputy CTO for Software AG, Christoph is responsible for realizing technology innovations both internally within the organization, with clients, and within industry associations. Christoph will be talking to us today about data platforms, spaces, and ecosystems, modern architecture for cross-organizational data sharing. Thank you very much for today.
I need
Thank you. The clicker?
No, and this one.
Okay.
Actually, that's symptomatic for my job that I need to stay loose. Okay, a little bit. This is all mechanical engineering. I am a theoretical physicist, so my wife always tells me I struggle with the real world, but that's not totally true, because in my I hope you can understand me even I don't. Yeah, thanks for the nice introduction, Christoph Strnadl, a Czech name. We were allegedly a very wealthy family 200 years ago when Austria was a real power. Now, this is also giving away that I'm obviously from continental Europe. I'm working in technology, and my floating around is symptomatic for my job as deputy CTO, because I constantly have to around new stuff. So technology, which is even beyond 27, like 2030, 2035, DNA computing, quantum computing. And then this is my organization, Software AG, the second largest German software company, and behind Software AG, our clients. So my task is to sort out what interesting technologies, potential technologies we have, how those technologies, and that's literally a journey, how that technology would translate in our products and services. Sometimes, like cloud computing, we completely have to change our Software AG internal processes, and then I have to sell it to our clients because they are typically a little bit behind. And then 2030 looks a little bit kind of really awesome. And this topic, data spaces and ecosystem, is definitely here to stay. It's on the European agenda, and I give you 3 forms how you can do on a non-technical, on an overview level, how you can do data sharing, and there are pros and cons, and there are also organizational pros and cons, how you can do data sharing. One slide, one very short slide, what Software AG is doing. Actually, I think Barry was talking about the European Interoperability Act, where governance, property systems, you can buy these type of software beasts from Software AG. We have been doing integration, including IoT, device integration, for 20, 30 years. So we do that. And we also not only provide, this is runtime, so you have a system and the system is accessing another system. We can also allow you or give you the tools to manage that digital transformation. Probably you have heard about ARIS and Alphabet, the brand names, to manage a digital transformation on the right level, because a process, for instance, you don't see processes, you have them to make them visible in order to manage, to massage, to transform them. So we do all the things I show you later. You cannot, not all of that you can buy from us, but we can of course help you. And I've been there, so I come from the depth of technologies, and then I translate it to the business proposition. So why do you do that? To social systems thinking. And in many projects, I'm probably the only one who can translate the business goals, like a little bit of bullshit bingo, like self-sovereignty, digital autonomy, whatever you have, very high level, that they are not bad, but you have to translate them into technologies. I mean, what ID form in your EID, in your European ID, do you really use in order to be self-sovereign? You have to translate them, and I can do that. I will do that with data sharing. it's very simple. There are only 3 forms how you can do that. And the most successful, the easiest way how to do data sharing between companies, you know, you have these 6 companies, if they can agree on a single man in the middle, a totally trusted entity for data sharing. If F wants to share data with, let's say, C, how would you do that? If you trust someone in the middle, you hand over your data to that trusted data intermediary, and the intermediary then takes care of transferring the data, making it accessible, usage right policies, whatever, transaction fees. If you trust, if you can find, if everyone in your ecosystem can find such a trusted intermediary, that's the way to go. It's the easiest thing. It's scalable. We have proven about that. But what do you do if you don't find that man in the middle? Of course, that's the American model. If you hand over everything to Microsoft OneDrive, you just have, you see the yellow lines. That's a little bit, of course, if you trust that man in the middle, that platform provider, you also have to adapt all of the systems which are using data sharing. You have to all color them yellow. Is that what you want? Google has green elements. Amazon has purple ones. So you have not only to trust the man in the middle, you have also to adopt the standards of the platforms. The US are very good at that. If you can trust them, or if you can build that in Europe and trust the data intermediation service provider, as the Data Governance Act would call that type of service, please do it. The cheapest, fastest, best way how to do data sharing, even secure data sharing. We have given you to read up definitions. A colleague of mine and I myself have published or are going to publish a book in Springer where we have researched that, so you can even cite that in your master thesis or whatever. So this is kind of sometimes necessary because people talk about platforms and it's a very wide concept. What if you cannot agree on the man in the middle? Then we have the concept of a data space where you have to agree a little bit. So the people, if you want to share data, you cannot do it. You have to agree on some sets of governance, of elements, of standards and organizational procedures. Because if you don't, then you don't have any ecosystem at all, if you don't agree on anything. So in a data space, the key defining feature of the data space is that you only have to agree on a few actually, not several, on a few basic assumptions. And the most important of these assumptions is identity. Why shall I trust the identity handed out by that man in the middle, a data space operator? So the man in the middle now is only responsible for making sure the identity, the authenticity is okay. But the man in the middle, the data space operator, will not get your data. You will truly be sovereign in your data exchange because you get, in typical data space architectures, you get that small box. The green box on the top is called a connector. And you as data sharing company are in charge of that box. And you determine if you honor a data sharing request through that box, which is a software component, of course, or not. So that's sovereignty. You have the software, you can control every access and allow it or disallow it. And everyone else, of course, would need the same box. So you have to agree on those standards, otherwise it wouldn't work. But in many data spaces, also those boxes are certified. So they have a certificate, so you can make sure that there is no fraud in that the others use the same type of box or certified box. And then data sharing, you do not have to hand over data to someone in the middle. One box, the box of the participant B, is directly talking to the box of participant D. No intermediary involved at all. This is for data sharing, and you see technical standards and organizational policies. Organizational policies means how do you get the identity allowing you to participate as an organization in the data space, because this is what you trust in. We have been talking totally about data, I think that's 1980s, 1990s, a data set, sharing a file. What about streams? What about services? If you generalize sharing data to sharing services, you arrive at ecosystems. And I put data in brackets because current concepts like Gaia-X are more service meshes, service ecosystems. They generalize the concept of data so that you notice the different icons are used. So the database icons have this kind of a new logo because you provide services here, like calculating your income revenue statement, like providing, handing out a passport or confirming a transaction. And then you also have a kind of authority at the side, not in the middle, at the side, which may be called Federator or Gaia-X, a digital clearing hub, but you have to have an entity a little bit, which is providing those ecosystem services like a catalog, and again, identity and authentication mechanism, like in the data space. But what's missing here, because the authentication mechanisms are more subtle, is you no longer need such a component. You have standards to follow with your identity, but you no longer need this box, the data space connector, in order to exchange services and create value in the ecosystem. This is technical. What about organizational? How would it look from an organizational point of view? And we did a few studies a couple of years ago, how to organize that, how to look into systems theory, social systems. And you, of course, you know that depending on the autonomy of the actors within a social system and the degree of cohesion, you have different forms how you organize as a hierarchy, and you have, of course, the firm as an example of that. For time reasons, I don't go into the qualifying criteria. That's for you to study. So you can quote that. Data platforms are here. You adhere to a hierarchy. There is someone in the middle, and you follow the rules of those of this guy. And then, of course, you have market. Data sharing on a market mechanism is website. So you have to pay or not, like journalism. But what's in the middle? That's network systems. They are a little bit unstable. People tried to identify that in real world, so Shaebools in Korea. So like caught between market and hierarchy, it's very difficult. You have data spaces and ecosystems conceptually situated there. This is not, we have not done, grounded theory work for doing that. This is a first approximation. So I'm happy if someone of the students or someone of research wants to extend that. But it's unstable. Adamos, for instance, please don't quote me on that. We tried that. Software AG and mechanical engineering companies in Germany tried to form an ecosystem. And we tried for years. And honestly, it did not work out because the cohesive factor were not strong enough to overcome the centripetal, the distributing, the other forces. So the problem is, what do you do in order to overcome these tendencies to either go to a data platform or go to the websites? You have kind of mixed forms, something like that. So a platform minus, or an ecosystem with a stronger kind of governance. Honestly, it's very difficult. Data spaces have been around for 7 years now. How many data spaces do you know? Operative data spaces. How many? Yes, you are right. Not a single one. The mobility data space is in operation for 2 years. Catena-X is kind of starting this year because of the social systems dynamics. Makes it very hard. Nevertheless, I think, and this is also a European differentiating factor, we live, we embrace, we can deal with heterogeneity. The Americans can't. They still send checks around. We have SEPA, Single Euro Payment Area. So what can organizations, what would we recommend organizations do right now in order to prepare for the data economy, maybe 2027? And you can do that in various forms, like from adoption to preparations. You can read for yourself. But there is one good point along those initiatives, those suggestions. Every single one I have listed here already in itself is profitable, has a business benefit. So even if you do not subscribe to data, Gaia-X, ecosystems, all of that, even if you don't do that, it's a good idea to have data architectures, identity management. Because if and when it comes, EID, it will come, EI does, then you are already prepared. And if your machines are not hooked up to an IoT platform, how would you be able to share and monetize your data? So you do that, you reap benefits right now, and every of these steps will be, or actually is, a good step, a progress towards the data economy. And eventually then, sorry, that's not the last one, and eventually, of course, if you want to be, yeah, we are sharing the slides, of course, eventually if you are a true disruptor, but you have to pay, like Software AG did for Adamos, then you can already do and participate in those data spaces. We do, also in the mobility data spaces in Gaia-X, because, and that leads me back to the initial slide of these workshops, because we, the standardization committees, other market, other competitors, and our clients understand we cannot do and invent the future alone. This is co-creation, but co-creation needs a space and investment. So we are going not hand in hand, but in workshops together in those industry groups with customers. And if you don't have money for doing that, please do something else. If you want to be on the forefront, if you want to differentiate yourself, now is the time to start. It's not too expensive to start, and then you will be at the forefront of that. Thanks for listening. And yeah, I will be around a little bit longer if you have any questions. I have a lot of details which I've been not able to show today. Thanks a lot.